Hello there, friends and RC family. My name is Alec from High Noon Hobbies, and if you're new to this channel, I very much appreciate you checking it out. I don't know how you got here, but I hope you'll stick around, watch a video or two, see if this content seems worth your while, and consider subscribing so that then I can say to you, if you aren't new here, welcome back to yet another Friday upload. This time we're going to be taking a look at two very different trucks which went head-to-head at the final Southern qualifying round of the North versus South RC Crawlin, North versus South Utah RC Crawlin Championship, which the finals actually happened. The finals for the championship happened this previous weekend from when I'm recording this, so I am a week behind. I'm going to be giving you guys two videos this weekend of the finals in the South, and then I will be giving you guys the content from the final qualifier in the South this weekend. And then next weekend we'll start with our content from the finals, the final championship, where the North versus South combined. It was a really good time. I super enjoyed myself for that weekend, but I also enjoyed watching these runs here. We are going to be watching Thomas from FABN801 run his MOA truck through the Unlimited class, and then we will be comparing that, or I guess first we will be watching the GSpeed G-Shot, which you guys have become familiar with and fond of. That is ScumbagRC's G-Speed, and these are some really great runs from both of these drivers. They were quite interesting, and I thought that it would be kind of a fun comparison to have these two trucks go head-to-head. So I won't waste any more of you guys' time with the face, and I'll just get straight into the runs. I hope that you enjoy them as much as I did. All right, so as I mentioned, first up we will be watching Luke, or ScumbagRC, in his G-Speed G-Shot, hitting this pretty difficult course here in the South. This is actually an area out more near St. George than Sand Hollow. The rock is a bit different, but it's still kind of that sandstone type material. It may be a bit more grippy in spots than the sandstone that would typically be found in the Sand Hollow or the Southern Utah region, what would be considered the standard. But it's still a very interesting spot. There's a lot of cool formations and all sorts of different lines to hit. So this is the Unlimited class. There are two different courses set up for Class 2, which is a bit more restrictive. No dig, no four-wheel steer, 475 tires. And then we've got the Unlimited class, which is essentially whatever you can bring to the show, whatever you think will perform the very, very best on some really technical lines. That is the Unlimited class. And in this particular circumstance, we are seeing obviously a fairly average, not necessarily average, but a more typical style vehicle that you might see in Class 2. The G-Shot is, it can be made to be Class 2 legal, although in this circumstance, Luke is running four-wheel steer. He does not have dig, but four-wheel steer is definitely at least a Class 3, but in this case, an unlimited feature. So he will have that advantage on this course. You can see that gate 1 was nothing too crazy. It was a bit of a V-notch, which was just something you had to square yourself up with and make sure that you stayed square the whole time. This drop here is a bit of a doozy, and unfortunately my camera is pointed a bit high there, but the ledge that the cones are placed on is a pretty good overhang before that ledge. There is a pretty good overhang before that ledge, so that makes that one something that you really have to line up well for and keep wheel speed on tap. Hey Mike, that's Mike from Sons of Crawl. I'll throw his tag up there and also in the description if you want to check out his Instagram. He's got some really great content as well, and some pretty cool gear that I've seen him do. I'm looking forward to more of the apparel and stuff that he comes up with for the RC crawling community. Now this gate here, a little bit in the shade, so you can't tell exactly what's going on, but we're getting just a little bit more light compensation from the camera now. This is just a nasty kind of double V-notch, a very climby feature with lots of grabby spots, and you want to stay as far to the right as you possibly can on that feature to avoid slipping down into that lower cone. But unfortunately, you also have that cliff's face working against your front tires there, and the bigger your tires, the more of a problem you have. So these 475s fit in there fairly nicely, and some MOA trucks I saw have some difficulty stuffing themselves into that little crack. Now we are setting up for the bonus here. This truck does not have a winch, and so the line that Luke is taking here is one that I have seen a few trucks do to get up this bonus line that don't have a winch. You really need to rely on that face on the left and let it carry you up and get your tires as close, your front driver tire particularly, as close to that upper cone as you can, and then start working your way across the V-notch. And the four-wheel steer helped Luke there basically line himself up and crab across the V-notch the whole way. This cone, or this gate here, is not too big of a problem. This is gate number 8. This is just a nasty side hill, so you want to really take your time. But again, with four-wheel steer, you can drop the rear at the same time that you can bring the front back up, and Luke is able to make that look like a fairly easy gate. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not 8. I think that's 5, and now we're headed into 6. Let's think about this. So he went through 1, 2, 3 bonus. Maybe that's 4. Ah, that is 4 because this is 5. Okay, so we're going to go up a pretty steep cliff here. And what made this one technical is that pocket that you see on the driver's side. You want to get to the left to avoid the pocket, but you've got the cone there in your way. Luckily, Luke has a lot of grip on these tires, and he's able to kind of force 3 of the wheels up and drag that rear tire through the pocket, so it wasn't too big of a deal. Now, this is an interesting approach for gate number 6. You have to cut your way across this V-notch, but make sure not to hit gate number 7, which is actually a gate that you'll descend through here in a moment. So it's still a live gate, but this is what we found the easiest way to get to gate number 6. If you come in after gate number 7 here, for gate number 6 that is, on this notch, you'll end up having to take kind of an odd angle, and you'll be more prone to hitting that number cone, which is on his driver's side right now. This is pretty technical stuff, but it's really just because you want to make sure you stay squared to both of the faces as much as you possibly can for as long as possible, so that you can drag that rear through without getting out of whack and potentially hitting that upper aero cone on that passenger side. Okay, so now he's got to make a sharp turn here and come back up this face. Obviously, a little bit of an aid placed in the middle of the course there so that the drivers could make it up that face, so that wasn't much of a problem at all. But now you have to really square up to gate number 7 because it's a very, very steep descent, and as his truck demonstrates, he ends up a little bit nose heavy there, goes over the front, a bit of an endo. He compensates with wheel speed, and unfortunately, it just lands in the wrong spot, and he tags the cone there on that gate, so we get to move on here to number 8. Number 8 is kind of hidden for the drivers as they approach it, so they really have to work to make sure they're squared with it. As you can see, Luke is taking an approach where he's just favoring that driver's side just a tiny bit, and he ends up making it through there totally clean, just using a little bit of wheel speed to his advantage to compensate for the fact that he's just a tiny bit front heavy in this truck. Now we're making our way over to 2 of the most technical gates on this course, and there's a bit of a technical error here. We actually thought that the course was a minute shorter than it was. So we thought that it was a 7-minute course when we were doing it initially here, and you'll see that there's going to be a cut as we're going through gate number 9 as I start moving over to this other direction, and that is because Luke ran out of time, or at least we thought he did here, because we thought it was a 7-minute time, and so you can see as we cut back, we put him back in the same spot that he was at and gave him another minute here because it isn't actually an 8-minute course. So he clears 9 there, which he actually had already cleared gate 9 in the previous attempt before we realized it was an 8-minute run. So we set him back up here, and as you can see, this is where things get really spicy on this course. There is about a 10 or 15 foot drop right there to his driver's side that you saw him get real close to there, and this really ledgy section through here with deep pockets makes it very difficult to traverse and keep your front wheels up above and ready to attack this V-notch here. So this V-notch for number 10, for gate number 10, is real difficult. We've got quite a steep incline, as you can see. Truck is almost vertical, and the only way to truly accomplish this is to wedge that driver's side front tire into the rock and try to use it for grip here and get your way through the cone. But unfortunately, Luke runs out of time. But fortunately, he runs out of time before he hits the gate, which you could see there, so he doesn't get that added to his score. But it's a little bit of fortunate and unfortunate, because he gets a 15 for the single gate of a DNF, whereas if he tagged it before the time ran out, he would have just gotten 10. So that leaves him with a final score of 17, which is a super respectable score for this course, especially given that he's not running an MOA truck. So we're going to keep that score up there in the corner, and now take a look at Thomas's run here in the MOA. These tires are a much softer, much grippier compound, and you can see that he's using a front burn there to get his front tires as warm as he possibly can before he starts the course. Now we're back to gate number 1, making our way through the notch, and you can see he's just dragging that rear axle, floating that passenger tire through, and he's going to square himself up to this face and bring his truck over. One of the things that I found very interesting, and I think you will probably find interesting as well, especially if you've been watching my content for a while and you haven't seen an MOA truck on YouTube, these MOA trucks, you can individually, motor on axle, you can individually control the speed of both axles. So it functions as dig in some circumstances, front or rear, and you can also just adjust, and see, he lined up, I thought, a little bit too far to that side of the cone that he hit there, and unfortunately, it actually, the front tire looked like it cleared, and we've got a battery issue here. This is actually new. I believe this is a new build for Thomas, although maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a new battery solution that he had there, but he had a couple of problems along the course with the battery falling off the axle there, which is unfortunate. But back to what I was saying, you can control the speed of both axles individually. So obviously you've got front and rear burn, but you can also just really load up the chassis any way you want. And this gate here will be a good example. You can see he's using wheel speed, a differing wheel speed on the front and back. Here's a dig, and he's loading up that suspension in different ways to place pressure on his wheels differently so that he can get the grip that he needs to, in this case, really stuff that giant MOA tire up into that crack, which he did a very good job of. Now he's got to head down this face. He's going to use a burn there and just make an awesome U-turn to approach this gate here. Now, this is a different approach here than we saw Luke take. We saw Luke go at it immediately further to the passenger side, and now Thomas is starting to realize, oh, I need to get my front axle further over to that, driver's side, so that he can make his way up the face as far as possible before he drops into the crack. So we're seeing him use that variable wheel speed here to make sure that he doesn't flip his truck over. He's got a couple of pretty close calls, but he's able to save it, which is pretty impressive. And he ends up deciding that he's going to, there we go, another difference in wheel speed, allowing him to make a crazy pivot turn to reset. And now he's going to approach it from a different angle. Still a different angle than we saw Luke take through here, which is interesting, but you can see Thomas is trying to stay square with it, and unfortunately that rear axle just doesn't want to stay square. So it bounces out, but when it bounces out, it actually bounces itself further to the driver's side than it did previously, and this is something he's able to work with a little bit. Now he's holding the front still and turning in while using his rear axle, just a little bit of wheel speed to bump his rear axle over. Now we're seeing him more in the same position that Luke was initially in, maybe just a little bit further to the passenger side. So he's really having to fight his way through this bonus, but he knows that he needs the bonus because he's already tagged a gate and had to do a rollover. So he finally gets through, he pulls that front end up, and we are now at 330 with a +5. So he's really got to make some time up here, and Luke, who's judging, actually points that out to him. Hey bud, we got to move a little bit quickly through the course now. You spent a little bit more time than would have been ideal on that bonus. So he makes pretty quick work of the next gate, but unfortunately the wheel speed just doesn't quite match the incline, and he ends up endoing over himself and using another rollover. And for the second rollover, in both cases, he had the battery pop out, so he just popped it back in there. I'm not going to count those as repairs. I don't know whether or not they would have been counted as repairs by the judge in this circumstance. I didn't see the score sheet, so I'm not sure what the official score was. So this is now your notice that this is kind of an unofficial version of the scoring and the timing. I'm not perfectly on par with what the actual score and time may have been. So if someone was there and they saw the score sheet and they want to correct me, correct these final scores, I would absolutely love you to do that. You can leave that in the comments down below. Thomas's MOA making super quick work of getting in this crack and getting past gate number 6, and another quick turnaround, a very tight U-turn, making his way up this face, no problem whatsoever. He decides to try to use this ledge here to burn his way across, but he's not quite able to do that because the ledge is so tall that just stops his rear axle entirely from drifting. Now here he's having to really control his wheel speed, and as you can see, the belly clearance of the MOA, the ridiculous belly clearance, helps him get through that gate and not nudge any of those little nodules that are on the face that caused Luke to bounce and endo over himself there. So now we're into the final two, the most technical gates of this course, and we're seeing a plus 10 already, so we know that it's going to be close no matter what. We're going to see what happens here. The one thing that I think is pretty noticeable between these two runs is just the time. The MOA, I think, is able to make a little bit quicker work of technical crawling. So we're seeing Thomas come into the more technical gates with about 2 minutes left, whereas in Luke's situation, he only had a minute left to nail these gates. So the time is obviously an advantage for any competitor. It gives you more time to think things through, and if you make any sort of mistakes, it gives you more time to correct for those errors and still make a clean pass through these final two gates here especially. So he makes it through gate number 9 with plenty of time left to work with, but unfortunately he kind of stuffs himself into this corner and burns some time trying to get out of it. This isn't what you want for a setup for this gate 10. You really want to be perfectly squared with that notch. So you can see he actually ends up having to use a reverse there because he can't variable wheel speed himself out of that pocket. And he sets himself up nicely for locking his front tires in and trying to get as much grip as he possibly can to get through this notch. Very, very steep notch, very difficult. Now, unfortunately, my camera is about to die here in just a second, so we're going to see a different perspective for the last little bit, and I'm going to add just a few seconds of time that it took me to pop my phone out and start recording with that. But here we are. We're back into the exact same situation we just were, and unfortunately, Thomas just barely bumps this cone here, leaving him with a plus 21 and a 7:16.05. So even though Luke DNF'd, his score with a plus 17 was actually better than Thomas's score. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Would you like to drive an MOA an MOA through this course, or G-Shot? I thought that both of these were really cool trucks and really cool runs, and I enjoyed watching them run through. I hope that you did as well. If you made it to the end of the video, go ahead and give it a like. And if you want to see more content like this, subscribe to High Noon Hobby for more content every Friday and Sunday. Appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.